Welcome to No Code North, the lodge in the summer. We're sitting by the lake and just kind of chilling out. I should have had a lake background behind me. But welcome to a bunch of Canadians getting to meet with and some friends as well, because I see we've got a couple of non-Canadians with us, and with Mason here from Edgar Allan. And today we're going to be discussing the book that Mason and the Edgar Allan crew wrote with Webflow. And I think I'm just going to pass it right over to Mason to introduce the book and to kind of get us into the conversation. If folks, I think we're live streaming to YouTube, so if anybody is there and wants to pop something into the chat, we'll keep an eye on that. And otherwise, join us in the lodge. If you go to No Code, not sure how we would
Just the latest post on Twitter. The link is right there, so and that's the link to the lodge. Yeah.
Right. Okay, so go find us on Twitter and jump right into the conversation here. And otherwise, I think we will just welcome Mason and let him take it away.
Yeah. Thank you, Penny, and thank you everyone for inviting me. Great to be able to see, old friends and new friends. And I'm excited to be able to talk about this topic, which is growing a service business with Webflow. I've been in the agency space for about 25 years, which feels like forever and just a heartbeat ago. I started my career off doing Flash design and development until that went away. And then, when we started the agency, I was like, gosh, all this redlining is really horrible. And so about 11 years ago, we adopted Webflow as a way to kind of bring more people into being able to build for the web. And have kind of grown up alongside of Webflow as an agency since then. And so we've been able to deliver around, I think it's 700 or 800 Webflow projects over the last 13 years. That means that we've learned a ton. We've broken Webflow about every which way you can. And we've also, I think, probably one of the biggest kind of transformations for me is like I was starting the agency is like I knew design or I knew coding, but fundamentals like how to create a project plan or getting into client management and getting into contracts and like all of this sort of stuff, which is kind of a dark art. It's just not talked about that much. And so I had talked with Webflow about it, and this started off as a series of PDFs. But they were like, oh, we want to help, we want to get some PDFs written. And I kind of already had about half of the book written, just with some blog articles and stuff like that I'd been kind of keeping in my back pocket. And I was like, oh, this would be really great. And hold my beer. I think once we get it finished, I'm going to publish it as a book. So that's kind of the story around how we've gotten here. And I would say that there's, at the end of the day, no true secret sauce to any of this. It's like try to listen, try to make sure that when working with customers and building a business, it's a relationship business. The ways that we build relationships are finding ways to be unbelievably helpful, looking at how to have clear just sense of what we're going to be working on, and that within a relationship that someone's not taking advantage of us, but that also we're being kind of like, we're finding ways to be generous and, all those types of things. So that's kind of where, we started, and I'm looking forward to being able to host this conversation. I'm looking forward to learning from everyone here. Every time I talk about this stuff, I feel like whenever you try to start to teach something, you actually have to then dig in and learn even more. And so I'm really excited to be able to learn and just have this conversation. So, yeah, we'll go from there.
Well, okay, let's start with a question for everyone here. Show of virtual emoji hands. Who's read the book? How do I do this? Like that. Yeah. Oh, Balthazar, you ready? Cool. Patrick. No good North admin. So maybe I'll start with some questions, and then because we're in the lodge and it's easy to ask questions, please feel free to raise your hands or ask anything in the chat there. But I think one of the questions I had while reading this is just like zooming out again for a second is you're a really busy business owner, and how did the process was about, like, how did the process go to organize your team? Which part of your teams were you able to pull into this project? How did the structuring of it, because I find it so well structured, so to the point, there's no extra bits, it's really well written. So how did you structure that, and who on your team was helping you with that?
Maggie, thank you. Great question, and that's really honor to hear that you found it to be well structured and kind of like, as you said, to the bits, or like without any extra bits. I would say it was more of a process of sculpture than architecture. And by sculpture, it means that we took a whole bunch of ideas and then sort of narrowed those down into what would be like a narrative, right? And so the writing process actually started first with an interview process, where I would just jump on calls with people that were building their businesses, and I was able to include a couple of those, from Grace and Peter, and just people that are in the space, and I was just checking with them on like how things were going, what they were thinking about, where they were winning, where they were seeing challenges, and took a lot of notes and organized those into spreadsheets. There's into one sort of master spreadsheet of all of the sort of topics that we were hearing about. And that was on the one side. And then on the flip side, as I said, I had about half of it written before we even got started, where a couple years ago, I started just writing down like, things that I had struggled with, or things that I thought would be helpful, or that I wish that I had 13 years ago. And it was around like how to think about an MSA, which I'd never heard of. And it wasn't until I actually started working with another agency and they sent me their MSA, and I was like, what is this? And then I had to learn about like, what is a statement of work, and then how to think about creating a project plan, and like all this stuff that I really stubbed my toe on. And so it was between those two things, both listening and kind of like an introspective of what I saw when I was getting started, that allowed me to, I think, create a full topic outline. And then once we started writing and kind of got to the end of it, then we sort of organized everything into what would be a really good narrative arc. Oh, there you are, Maggie. You're muted.
You're just muted, Maggie.
Yep.
Sorry, I was just gonna ask if someone wanted to go with any question. Balthazar, you got any questions for Mason?
I do have a question. I'd love to jump in.
Okay, go ahead.
So when you were talking about figuring out your pricing, I actually really appreciated the fact that you talked about like you don't have to necessarily have like to stick to like a fixed rate or like an hourly rate for a project. Like a lot of times, especially when you're doing discovery, you'll need to do hourly for the discovery, so you can kind of figure out what the fixed costs are going to be. Is there like typically a threshold where you try to like draw the line and say, okay, this needs to move to a fixed cost now, or like similarly like the reverse where it's like, no, this won't be large enough for a fixed cost, like let's just keep it a threshold, like, or let's just keep it hourly? Like, is there a threshold you kind of stick to, or is it just depending on the client as well?
I look at the project type. So to have clarity here, if it is something that's repeatable that we do all the time, then we'll have discovery that we can do that's just canned. I'm happy to go and show a bit today around what that kind of deep dive into what that discovery looks like. And that's where we'll go in and do a fixed cost. I can share as well a numbers document. I think I referenced this in the book that we've used. And I just made it up. And what I did in there is within my fixed fee projects, I had a list of tasks that I would do, and I would have time that goes this way. And then I would just plug in there, okay, for this, it's going to start from this date to this date. And then I would put the hours that I would think would happen over the course of that time. And then I took all those tasks, then I would put those into a statement of work of like, here's what we're going to do, here's our assumptions, here's what we're not going to do. And then in a situation where I don't know what's going to happen, and this also sometimes happen in migrations. Sometimes when we're doing like WordPress to Webflow migration. We just have to go in and do some discovery. And then based upon that discovery, we'll be able to say like how many sprints. So that's where we'll go through and do discovery and say like, hey, let's go and have a 40-hour window where we just need to kind of give us access to your build, and let's kick the tires, and let's go through and do these like fixed activities to help diagnose this problem. And then from that point, then we can say like, is this, 1 sprint, 5 sprints, 10 sprints, and sprints typically just being a fancy way of saying 2-week increments or however long those increments you want to be. But at that point, what's great is you can sell those sprints as opposed to selling hours. And then the pure hourly approach, which I do is more like blocking, where I'll be like, great, happy to work as a blended member of your team. We're going to do this over, either day blocks or week blocks, or maybe it's even month blocks. That's where we can then go through and say like, you have total flexibility. I'm a taxi cab. You jump in, you just tell me where you want to go. I run the meter and we're good. And if you decide you want to go to the airport and then go to the candy store and then go see a movie, like we can do all those things. And I have no idea where I'm going to go at the beginning of this, but it's up to us together to be able to do this. So those would be the 3 approaches. And one question, Maggie, that you asked, so how did this get written? And I do want to do a shout out to the team. So there was the process of listening, and we had some stuff that was pre-written, but there was a dedicated writer that was assigned to this. Once we had the topics, I went through and she would interview me, and we'd record those. So she would be like, here's the topic. And then I'd be like, okay, here's the opening sort of statement. Here's how we go through and support that. I would talk through that. She would do a draft, I would review, and then we would kind of finalize that for the book. Once we had all of those written, then we went through a design process, and Chesley and team worked with Webflow, got some of their design assets, then we designed the PDFs. And once we handed over those PDFs, then we were like, oh, now we're going to make it into a book. And then we had to change all the layouts because PDFs always have sort of a left gutter, and then books have left and right gutters. And so there was a little bit of moving stuff around. And if you'll notice, there's the pages that have dotted lines on them to take notes. That was actually a hack to address like how the PDF formatting was working, moving from PDF to a book. So anywhere where we just had a blank space, we're like, take some notes. And I think that helped in the process.
I love that.
Yeah. So Patrick, does that answer your question?
It does. I just have like a super, well, I don't know if it's going to be a brief follow-up question to it, but
Yeah,
I just
let's
have
go
a
for
follow-up
it.
question to it. And this might be more of like an issue that I find with like smaller agencies, or like even smaller agencies that I've been a part of, or when they're still in kind of like the startup phase. But do you ever have clients that come to you and it's like, you already know that they have a budget and you're fitting the project more to the budget as opposed to like trying to figure out what their project actually should cost?
Yes. One of the things I often ask is going through discovery, 2 questions. One, do you have a hard timeline that you're trying to be able to hit?
Yeah.
And then what level of investment have you put against this project? And I frame it in terms of investment and not budget, because it's investment sort of says that you're going to try to put in $1 and you want to make $1.40 out of that. And sometimes it's, if they say, no, I have no budget or haven't thought about a budget, then that starts to push towards like a disqualifying activity. And I'm like, well, if you haven't thought about what you want to spend, then maybe there's a level of maturity that just that's not within this conversation. Oftentimes I will then give a ballpark where they're like, well, just how much is this going to cost? I'll be like, well, generally a, WordPress to Webflow migration is going to be anywhere from 3 to 5 sprints, and this is how much we cost a sprint, and that's going to get you an allocation of about 1.3 people. And I get really specific like that so I can quantify what that number means. And then when they go and talk with someone else, I can make sure to just say like, hey, great, someone else is saying they're going to do it for $10. Does that include project management? Does that include QA? Have you done an audit around what's the technologies that you guys have to integrate? And how are you guys thinking about training, right? So there's a lot of different things that we can start to put out there in the world so that they can start to see between the lines. Because I saw this 2 days ago on Twitter, and I'm not going to call out the agency. Great agency, love their work. And they posted something like, did you know you can migrate from WordPress to Webflow in 3 weeks? And I was like, wow, I should just hire them. Like, I should just be a salesperson for them, because that's great. I can sell that all day long. They can go and service that. I'm going to make a ton of money. I just think that that's sort of like focusing too much on speed is disingenuous. Focusing too much on price starts to create this mindset of it being a commodity. If we can focus on the full project and what's the value and what are the gotchas that they're going to run into, like really focusing on guiding them throughout this process tends to lead to better outcomes.
So then I guess then so if someone came to you and like, we want this website, like, and it's like a larger enterprise client, like we have like X budget, we have $150,000 for example, right? Is that like, if them just, I guess them having a budget wouldn't be a disqualifying factor, like that'd be kind of good. You try to work in what they do into that budget, right?
And if the budget doesn't fit for us, I'm often happy to say like, great, that's probably just not a budget for how we operate. I have a group of people that operate a little bit differently that are going to provide a different level of service that you can totally work with. And sometimes it's around like, how do we match up those teams? Like a big corporate team is going to need a different set of things than maybe an earlier stage company or a founder that's just trying to get something off the ground, or the pizza shop, or, it's like, this whole range. And it's not that one is necessarily better than the other or less complicated or whatever. It's more around how to try to pair up those two different organizations to create the right type of outcome.
Yeah, like matching the business needs of both, right? Yeah, okay, gotcha.
Exactly.
Awesome.
So I like that distinction between budget and investment, because I do try to frame that as well, right? Because that that focus on budget is from a company who, it's like everything's an expense, right? Whereas they don't understand necessarily that bigger picture. So how do you sort of, can you educate, or do you try to educate from that sort of understanding of?
So one of the other questions I'll ask in discovery focuses on how their website fits into their earned and paid media. And so I often talk about, when people ask me what we do, I say, well, we work in owned media with a focus on the web. And we try to understand customer from first contact through conversion, optimization, and attribution. So that's a fancy way of saying we build websites. But if I ask someone like, all right, well, just tell me about your marketing landscape. What does the website really need to do? How does your website operate as a sales enablement engine? That's also another really great hack. If you're talking with a group that's coming from a sales-led culture, there's two different cultures within companies. There's a sales-led culture and there is a marketing-led culture. Marketing-led is like, they understand the value, they understand like how this works, they're probably more sophisticated. They're kind of connecting the dots already, and we can separate that. Sales-led, on the other hand, they're like, I don't trust marketing. Our team, rise and grinds, and like we're hammering those phones, and it's a relationship business, and people don't even look at our website. To that, I would say, well, when you're sending a prospect, what's the time horizon for how long it takes you to close a deal? And they're like, well, from first contact to closing a deal, that can sometimes take, let's say 3 to 6 months. Or we were talking with a group just last week, and it's a 9 to 12 month deal cycle. I was like, well, how do you kind of nudge that deal along, or what do you do to help them understand the value of what you offer? And they would typically say something like, well, we'll check in with them over email, maybe every month or quarter. We might send them over a PDF or things along those lines. And I say, well, how are you tracking those emails? Oh, well, those emails get tracked through our CRM. Awesome. Well, and I was like, do you know if they're viewing your PDF or what they're doing on the PDF? And like, well, once we send over the PDF, we really have no idea. And I'd say, well, Another way of looking at your website is as a sales enablement tool. And so what we should do within your site is really carve off parts of that experience where it's fully dedicated to your team having pages that you can send to your prospects. And then what you do is you're tagging those so that anytime in 2 months when someone actually goes back to read that email, they're clicking on that link, and then boom, up to the CRM, salesperson gets a notification, oh, someone just was looking at one of the pages that you sent them 2 months ago. It might be time to nudge them and see if things are changing in their organization. So that's how we can start to talk with them about how it can fit into the deal cycle to make sure that they see, like, if we could reduce that cost, if we could shorten that time from 12 months to 6 months, would that be valuable for you? They're like, yeah, absolutely. And say, like, what is that sort of opportunity cost, right? So that's how we can start to frame it as an investment. And then on the marketing side, what I'll do there is they're typically going to be more sophisticated. And what I would say is that, listen, I'm not asking for you to put more budget towards this initiative. Oh, if you heard that, hear that? Oh, that's my rabbits like throwing their bowl around. So they're getting like grumpy and they're like wanting some fresh hay. But I would say, listen, I'm not asking you to increase your budget for the year. What I am asking for, hold on one second. This is hilarious. Guys.
This
It's
is
the
my
intro.
struggle. This is my struggle.
This is a pet intermission.
Mhm.
Yes.
But this is their bowl. This is their bowl. Also, I'm going to stand up, which is, I feel like I'm a Bond villain. It's often better if it starts like this.
I just feel like a movie of Austin Powers kind of thing.
I can just like
That's
lower.
amazing.
$1 million.
That should be your new intro. You start
It really
completely
should be.
off
Like, I
screen,
should-
Every client
start-
meeting should start like that.
but like
I should
slow it down. Like it's got to take 30 seconds to display.
I think maybe I'll start a podcast just to do that. Yeah, but no, I do need to go and like, I just need to stand up so I can like talk and stand. But then it's awkward because if I stand up too soon, then you're just like seeing my belly, and I'm like, I don't want y'all to. I'm not just like trying to show off my belly here. All right, but working with a sales-led organization, with a marketing-led organization, what we can say is like, listen, all right, talk to me about what's your media spend look like today, and they'll say like, well, we're spending. I mean, on the low end, it's going to be like, I don't know, 5,000 to 15,000 a month just on paid media. And I'm like, what's your conversion rate on that? And so it's a really easy calculus to be able to do to say, all right, if we're able to reduce, your media spend from 15 or 150,000 a month, and move into like conversion rate optimization, which is a great kind of retainer to have, right? So if we can get into that, CRO type of model, then all of a sudden, like, all we're doing is, one, we're helping them have better qualified opportunities that are coming into their sales team or into their organization, and long-term helping them to reduce the cost of what that opportunity investment really means. So those are the two ways to be able to talk about how to frame this as investment, and then be able to back out of that and say like, okay, great. Well, here's, does this make sense? Does the math work out, right? So if we were to go through and, migrate you over from this to this, or do sort of like a design to build, and we're able to reduce that cost, like those are some levers. Now, half the time, they're just like, oh yeah, well we have a conference coming up and we need a new website. It'll be something like dumb, simple like that, and that's fine too. And I'll be like, cool, all right, well, it'd probably be about 7 to 10 weeks or 5, like whatever that kind of weekly run rate is. So Penny, does that get into how to be able to talk about value? Like how does that feel for you?
Yeah, I think that really helps a lot to understand that framing for the client, helping them understand. Because I think certainly maybe not so much in this group, but some of us work with really small clients who just they have no clue how much these things cost, and they kind of tend to fall out of their chair sometimes when you say, well, it could be this much, right? Because with just even a ballpark quick off the top of your head number, you kind of go, I don't think this client's going to want to spend the money that they should.
Yep.
And because everybody thinks, well, you just grab things off the shelf and you just pop them in and it's done, you know, that it takes 5 minutes to put a website together, and they really don't have a clue, you know. So
yeah, exactly. And again, these are the headwinds that I was talking about just a second ago, where I caution people to kind of have those eye-catching tweets or LinkedIn posts around like, oh, you know, 3 weeks we can go and do whatever, or focusing so much on speed or cost, because it's a race to the bottom for really everyone. And Penny, what I would say is sometimes the best business we lose is the best business we win. And it's better to be able to get that really quickly. And so when we have conversations, I just really want to kind of get to know there is a deal, you know, like, oh, this is really like a qualified opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. The sooner you can get to that, you know, yes or no, you know.
And it can be a bummer because you're like, oh, I had such hopes for this, and they came in the form and whatever, and the next thing you know, you're like, oh, they have no budget, and I just went and put all this time into a response, and I thought about their business, and I could have been working on something else for my portfolio. So I do want to get like a screenshot to post on the LinkedIn a little bit. Is that cool with everybody? Kind of like halfway point before. All right.
We have some folks who haven't turned on cameras. If there's a chance that you can pop on, and then we can grab everybody at the same time. But if you can't, that's okay. Oh, Brendan, and I know Nancy's there. I think Nancy's in France right now. Hey.
There we go.
Oh,
we got it.
all right. Got it.
1, 2.
Excellent. Hey.
We'll do one more.
There we are. One more time. One more. Oh no, we lost Marcy.
Awesome. All right.
Have the book with me.
Marcelo, are you getting yours in place? Do you need to?
I can get the book if you give me a second.
Yeah, go get the
Yeah,
book.
sure. Let's do it. Let's do it. It's all
Third time's the charm.
Lita, are you in Italy right now? Give us a thumbs up if a yes.
We're on vacation, and you're driving with me through the Austrian mountains, so the internet is kind of in and out.
Oh,
Nice.
amazing.
Nice. Driving through the Austrian mountains. Gotta love it. A little bit of Alps activity for you. And a sleepy boy. That's great. Excellent. So we've lost Jeremy again, but Brandon will come back for a second as soon as Marseille finds the book, because it's beside his bed. I bet he reads it every night before he goes to bed, right?
What's while we have a second, how was the reception? Have you, because you've done a conference since then, or a couple conferences, sorry, you just did one 2 days ago, and what have people told you in person?
You know, so I presented at the FlowConf in Serbia, which was awesome. We handed out, actually sponsored to hand out about 200 books. And so we did that at the conference. I didn't get to talk with anyone because they had just got the books and they didn't get to read them. But the talk went really well. And it was I was really nervous to like speak to a group that, you know, they were here. It's like I'm flying halfway across the country. Like I'm trying to be really, really conservative, just as a guest, right? So just trying to be a really good guest. So I started my talk off with a shot of rakia, which is like it's one of their culturally significant drinks, which is basically just like a shot of plum brandy. And then gave the talk from there. I was like, all right, let's go. But they got a real kick out of it, and it was great to be able to just talk. The theme of that talk was selling is helping. I'm happy to come on in another regard and go through that talk. A lot of the stuff that we'll talk about today probably hits on that, but yeah. And then I think I think Marcel had to run out to his car to get his book.
Perhaps.
Which is all right.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking about like, because you have a whole set of slides ready. I guess I saw your talk virtually through my laptop.
You saw me like I think take my shot of rakia, and then I got like really like was like, I've never taken a shot while giving a presentation in front of 300 people. And so I got like really nervous. And then I
Did
was,
it
yeah,
probably, yeah.
it was more of like a, I think it was actually harder to do with that, but I, I was here for it.
I like the fact too that discovery, that you start off with discovery, which of course is what we should all start off with,
Yep.
because quite often I've been seeing posts lately, people talking about, all the cool animations, and it's like, or people saying, it's not about the animations, folks, right?
Yep.
It's not about stuff moving on your website if you're not listening to your client. So maybe talk a little bit more about that.
Marcia, you got it?
That listening to
Apologies,
just,
anticlimactic. I'm gonna have to do the same thing that Patrick did.
Oh yeah.
okay.
So, Pat, do you want to send the picture there?
Oh yeah.
I like the background idea too.
I was trying to tag as many people that tagged the book online to try to get a bunch of people that actually that read the book to that I thought that'd be make a. I didn't realize you gave 200 copies. I wish I knew like who those 200 people were, because it would have made for an interesting conversation too.
We'd have to
I
like
think-
geo-target Serbia, and then we could probably get a bunch of people in there.
Right. I think you should do a follow-up call with the people that you gave the books to. And
That is a great idea.
But we need some more rakia too, though.
Yeah.
Well, hey, you know what? Next time, I mean, what's a culturally significant drink from Canada? Maple syrup, I guess.
Yeah.
maple whiskey,
Maple syrup
maybe.
shots.
Maybe. All right. Hey,
I
if
don't
you send
know.
it down, I will go for it.
There you go. No.
There we go.
All right. Okay. So
Okay, well-
Jeremy, pop back. Kaleem, if you can pop your computer on, we're going to do a screenshot. But if you can't,
All right.
don't have a camera, that's okay.
Everyone say LinkedIn.
All right. Ready?
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
All right. Cool. Awesome. All right. So my talk in Serbia, this is actually a really great segue. And it gets into discovery, Penny. And the theme was selling is helping. And Marcel, like I know you guys as friends, like that's a big thing for you guys. But the way that we help is really first starting. You don't even have to think about it as discovery. Just listening, like the biggest sales hack is listen to someone and whatever they just said, repeat it back to them and say, oh, I hear you, Penny. You're asking about how we can do a better discovery, right? And so that sort of, I don't get into a lot of these like, psychological whatever, but if nothing else, it just shows them that you heard what they said, you processed it for a second, and then you created a response. And sometimes when we don't do that, it can be off-putting in a way where it just shows that you had preconceived ideas and whatever. And then so what I try to do within my discovery, my listening sessions, is understand what's the business problem, what's the business situation, and how is it that when I create a response, which I always do in person, I never send a Loom. I think that's one of the misconceptions that's out there, is like, oh, just send a Loom and that's how you can kind of like, create efficiencies within your new business process. Every conversation should be about how do we build the relationship to understand if it's a good fit to work together. And whenever we have the discovery call, I use that as a great way to just, again, understand the business problem, what's happening within their world, who are they as people, and how is it that we could go through and address that in a particular way. And then before I get off of that call, I always go and schedule my next call. And I'm like, great, well, give me about a week. I'm going to go in and get a response together for you. I'd love to be able to kind of walk you through that. And so if there's anything that I get wrong, that you can kind of tell me on the spot. We'll start looking at calendars, and that way, because it's harder for someone to blow you off while they're sitting there and talking with you. And it's not necessarily blowing you off, but they might be going and talking with 2 or 3 people. And if they're, just like, oh, I'll just go and look at all these later, it can be a process of dehumanizing, right? So if they're just looking at numbers and PDFs, like that's a way that it doesn't feel like a real person. It doesn't feel like, Patrick with a bird on his shoulder or whatever, like, or me like trying to go and get my bunny bowl. Like it's all these little small micro reactions around like just what are the personalities? Like, how does this all work? So schedule that next call. And then, once we jump on there, that's when I'll go through our presentation or a response. But the first thing that I do in that presentation is that I make it all about them. And so I say, the assignment that you talked with me about was this, and the business challenge that you talked with me about was this. And now we're going to go and talk about how to unpack that so that you can address that assignment and be able to kind of get over this business challenge. And it's a really simple structure. And so that gives us a framework for how to be able to kind of respond. Also, just like, I don't know, it's been a long time since I've done any dating, but like if you can get the other person talking, then you're like way ahead, and so many times they'll just get nervous and then they'll just want to talk about themselves. The other hack that we do is we will actually, like, my goal is they know nothing about Edgar Allan except that they want to work with us. And they're like, gosh, they just really get us. And I haven't had to tell them like, oh, we do this or this and this. What we try to do is ask a series of questions which get them talking about their business, and ask questions that show that we've done a little bit of work and that we can help them, be able to address whatever problem they're going to do. Now, that's the warm and fuzzy side of this. Now, the sort of like the flip side of this is to be able to, before I jump on a sales call, I've got some tools that I'll use to get a sense of like, well, how many pages are on their current site? So I'll do that. We're actually building a tool right now to be able to give X-ray vision into site migrations. You can go and show a little bit of that here at the end. But today, the two ways that we'll do it is with Screaming Frog. So enter in a URL. It's going to go and give me a total list of pages. I'll then export that as a spreadsheet and then look at how many directories are there and then how many pages are on the root. That'll point to, okay, how many general templates do they have? And then if there's a ton of pages on the root, that means that it's going to be 9 times out of 10 a more disorganized site and a more complicated, even if it's designed to build or migration, it's going to be a more complicated project. And I'll do that before we've even had a conversation. But I won't mention that on the call necessarily. I'll just dig into it. And then I'll also be able to have a list of technologies where I can say, hey, it looks like you're running Algolia search. Is that something that, how does that working for your business? Or how does Salesforce work into all this? And I'm like, well, we've got, Salesforce kind of connecting to our forms or like, but it just shows that there's a certain level of kind of technical acumen, and then pairing that with sort of softer skills of like, I'm here to be a guide and to listen and to make sure that we're solving the business problem. Put those two things together, you're pretty unstoppable.
I think it also just shows that you do your homework.
Yeah,
right? That you put
doing
the
some
effort
homework
in.
and being respectful, being a good guest in their time is the other thing. Like, just as I was saying, like, how can I be a good guest when I'm in Serbia or here? And if I'd really been thinking about it, I'd worn one of my flannel, or get my ski goggles on. But I was jumping between meetings. I was jumping between meetings. So yeah, but I think that's how we try to approach that discovery and listening.
Yeah. So I think a lot of it is too about respect, right? It's respect for the client, right? That whole concept of just send them a loom, right? So many things that you see from people, it just feels like they don't actually respect the people that they're trying to get work with.
And the flip side around is that there's a lot of what I'd say is the Fiverr-cation of the world, where it's just like, okay, just give me the numbers, and it's like, if we're just jumping to those numbers, then one, that's not the type of group that we want to work with, and two, like, it dehumanizes it. So respect is one way of looking at it, but I view it as relationship building, and it doesn't just stop at the project. So a lot of times the challenge is like, once you deliver that project, how to kind of maintain that relationship. 90% of our business comes from past customers or customers that are referring us to other people. And so if, we make good shoes, we deliver good shoes, and then people talk well about our shoes, like that's generally like how we end up getting business and growing. And what we generally see is we've seen about 15 to 20% growth year over year. And I think that's a good, like, it's a healthy amount where you can manage that. Too much more than that, and it's like you've got organizational growing pains, and it's just like too much to handle. But also, I think there can be times where it's not about growth. Just having a sense of craft and how you want to be able to work and whatever it means to like do your best work is probably the thing that I think is the better horizon line to run towards.
In this same kind of vein, do you think that COVID really affected how people have or approach relationships with their clients? Because like sending a loom to a client is like that never existed before COVID, right? But a lot of people who started their business, or like a lot of people got started in Webflow during COVID, and I always find like the biggest way that I can kind of like separate myself from that a little bit is if I started before COVID. So if if someone wants me to jump onto a client call or take client out for dinner, I'm like, yeah, like let's go for it. Whereas like some people might find that like just not a part of their business, right? So do you think like COVID changed kind of how you do business with clients or
Absolutely. And I would say that for us, COVID was great because before COVID, we really only worked with Atlanta-based customers. And there was this big kind of blocker. Like if we weren't in New York or San Francisco, they was just like, I'd get a pat on the hat and be like, oh, that's so nice. You're in Atlanta, And Atlanta is viewed as one of Atlanta is a great city, but it's not, it's not New York or San Francisco. But now after COVID, like I'm a person showing up on a blank wall, and they're like, oh, where are you in the world? Oh, I was there this summer or whatever. Like it's not as big of an issue. Now, the thing that we are as a company like really trying to do a better job of is actually go and meet all of our customers in person at least once a year. Just as I said, like I kind of made like me randomly showing up to Toronto. Like I was trying to see like, is this someone that I want to work with? How does this kind of feel? And then also just like, hey, let's grab some lunch, get some coffee. That's definitely a way to extend that into something that's not just a Zoom call.
Love it.
Mason doesn't send looms. He drives 48 hours to meet people. That is maybe that needs to be in the jacket of the
Put it on a shirt.
Yeah, I don't know if I advise as I was going back through, customs for a second time, I was like, this better result in a deal.
Like the shirts that they sell, or like even the poses and stuff, but they're like for like racing, for like F1 tracks, and it's like the track and it's like whatever, and it's got like the time or the fastest lap or whatever. You should have like drives that you've made to clients like on like a minimal kind of map with like, oh, this was a 48-hour trip.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely more than, it's not the norm. And I would say that this particular group, they were just delightful. Maybe it was kind of like, the Canadian niceness and the whatever, but I was like, you know what? I was like, would it help for me to swing by and have lunch? And they were like, yeah, let's do this. And I was like, I'm all for it. So it was really great. My only regret is that I wasn't able to see friends in the area, and I was really pressed to like get back to Atlanta so I could, get back to my standing desk.
Otherwise, we would have to have the book club in person.
Yeah.
When I read your message, I think you were already gone. It's like, oh, he's gone.
Yeah. I slacked Maggie, and I was like, Maggie, I'm in Toronto and I'm leaving, and she was like, what? Like what?
And I totally... We'll organize a thing. We'll like, I'm sure Penny would like to see. We'll do some drinks or something. And you're like, oh, but I'm gone. Okay.
If I had like, it was on I was there on a Saturday. That Friday before I was like, yeah, I'll go and do it. And I was still packing up everything, and I was like, oh, I know a ton of people in the area, but anyway. So, all right, what other? So we've got 7 more minutes. What do you think is the most helpful kind of use within the last 7 minutes?
Well, does anyone else want to? I know Marcelo. Like, it's nice. It's actually nice to see you. I feel like maybe once here you come by. So like if you wanna, if you have some questions or.
I'm not gonna lie, it's like I had this in my calendar, like I had the book club, and I was like, when did I add this book club? I'm so happy I did, because it's like my way is like if it's in my calendar, I'm here.
Yeah.
But it's like I don't remember, so I didn't come with any questions prepared other than, of course, having read the book, which I think that you guys were talking about. So,
Yeah.
I'm one of the big takeaways that I had from the book is how the service industry is transforming from delivering, that was kind of like the key thing of being a service provider, to actually be taking this human aside approach that Edgar Allan takes, where the delivering of the service is kind of like, of course, we're
Yep.
not even going to talk about that. It's like,
Yep.
what do you want with the awesome service that we're going to do? How does
Yep.
this changes your business, your life, your sales process in our case, right? When we were talking. And I took away the cadences on how to ask the questions to the customer and keep this account management moving. Fantastic. That has been kind of like my main takeaway.
And so, Marcelo, thank you. And something I'll throw out here is just maybe another book that we could read, and maybe we go and have another hosted conversation on this. There's a book that I read maybe 10 years ago called The Great Client Partner. And it was written by someone here in Atlanta, runs an agency. Maybe I could see about having them, join in to the conversation or whatever. But it just goes through all of these things around just, really getting into what does client management really look like at a functional level. Just like it's a role like project management or QA or Webflow development or JavaScript development. I mean, it's a very specific role. And the thing that that I really try to take to heart and talk with people about is, a lot of times I'll ask, like, who in here is in sales? And like, not many people will raise their hands. And I would say that, well, in fact, everyone is in sales. And it doesn't matter if you're on the front end of making that first contact. And also, sales is not about smiling and dialing and like, just trying to trick people and, or even getting that initial project. Sales really happens every day all around us. And it just has been converted into this notion of like sort of tricking, or it's just about closing a deal or whatever that might be. Sales in its best form is, as I said at the top of the call, it's about finding ways to be helpful and looking at how to solve the problem that someone is facing. I've got another, like the other thing I'm happy to do is I'm happy to go and give the presentation Selling is Helping, and I start to break down. There's 4 different things that I look in there. I can also just send it out if people want to read it. And then the other piece I can go and share is my first project plan. So that's where I made, like, you would not believe how many times we've closed a project just with a spreadsheet where I haven't even shown my portfolio. And so for the people that really want to understand cost, but process, putting that in a spreadsheet, it just like, it's the hidden hack. Because what it shows is that you've not only thought about the journey that we're going to go through together, right? Us and that customer, but also what time is going to be needed from them, and then what time is going to be needed from us, and what's that, again, level of investment going to look like.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but
I think having you come and do that Selling is Helping presentation would be fabulous.
let's do it. Yeah, let's maybe do.
Yeah.
I mean,
We're
we can
planning-
find a time maybe in 2 weeks or something, or
Right. Or
You wanna
maybe
do it
during
in
our
September?
fall. We're,
Maybe
yeah,
we're
we're
trying to,
planning
like,
our fall
Availability,
season.
but yeah. It depends on your availability, but yeah, it'd be nice. Like, let us know if there's like in September if there's a good Friday.
And just as I talked about, let's go through and put time on the calendar before we end this call.
And like amazing that, because I just said, if it's not in my calendar, it's not happening. So let's
That's what I
do
was
it.
gonna say. Like, Marcel, you
Yeah.
just gotta put it in your calendar right now. Okay, don't wait for the invite. Just put in your calendar right now.
So
Just be here.
let's look at the 5th. The 5th at lunch.
the Saturday, or that's a Friday, right? September 5th?
Friday the 5th.
What a
Same time, same
perfect.
gather
That
spot.
would be a great way for us to kick off our fall season. So
Great.
terrific.
We'll have that on Selling is Helping. I'll send this out, I don't know, Penny, Maggie, like just as a pre-read for you guys to make sure that we don't cover off on too much that we've already covered off on today. But the thing that I do go into in detail there is how to create a great project plan, which I don't know if people would find that valuable, but just what does that look like? And then I have the numbers spreadsheet and like all that sort of stuff.
Sounds
Excellent.
good. Yeah.
I think that's perfect. Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we will wrap up. I was
Yeah,
kind of
right
thinking
on
this was going to
time.
keep on going, but I'm glad that we have something planned now for the future.
Yep.
We will see everybody in early September. And for folks that we are new to, we are No Code North, and you can go to nocodenorth.com and see our our website and join our mailing list there, and you'll get our fabulous emails every week. And otherwise, we want to thank Mason very much for joining us today, and for all of our friends who dropped by the lodge. And we will see you all anytime. Every Friday we do something. So
Awesome. I want to hear from more people
awesome.
next time. Also, high five for Webflow Cafe. I see the shirt over there. And yeah. So
One of my
thanks so
best
much. It's a real
t-shirts.
honor to be able to join. Love being able to see everyone. Look forward to continuing the conversation.
Excellent. Thank you so much,
Yep.
Mason.
See you guys.
Bye, everybody.